We are not rational beings, much as we would like to think so. There is a part of us, thank goodness, that is rational, but if we really look at our lives, if we really were rational people, we all would be the right weight, and we all would be exercising, and we all would be very prudent with money, and we all would have reasonable relationships, and we would actually elect intelligent, rational government officials. But we are not rational beings. There is, thank goodness, that small part of us that keeps us in line. But there is a much deeper, bigger part of us. There's a much bigger part that is not quite as understandable, that the mind can't get around and put into a box and say, oh yes, I now have got this one figured out. There is a much larger part of us that really is a mystery. There are forces inside ourselves, there are parts of ourselves, there are voices in ourselves, there are energies in ourselves and in the universe that are kind of wild, that are really, out of control. Fortunately, that's not the whole picture. It's only one level of things. But we have to acknowledge that as much as we would like to be in charge and in control and reasonable and think we are, hope we are, this isn't the case. And we're going to do a ceremony today that really talks about some of these, really that addresses some of these mysterious and kind of wild, out of control parts of ourselves. But during the month of October here, we do a chant every day at noon, calling all you hungry hearts, everywhere through endless time. You who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this Bodhi mind, this wisdom mind. And so we spend this month chanting this thing and really asking, let us see this part of ourselves. Let us acknowledge this part of ourselves. Let us see this dark, mysterious, wild part. Some years we have lots of interesting people coming out of the woodwork. Some years we have really some quite crazy energies that come forth. This year's been a very, very tame one, thank goodness. But during the time of Segaki, we then say, okay, let's acknowledge all of these, let's feed these, and let's send them back into the appropriate place. In Greek mythology, it was important to honor all of the gods. You could have your favorites, of course. But if you didn't honor all of the gods, the ones you didn't honor were the ones that would get you. So it's the acknowledgement of the Dionysian dimension, as well as the Apollonian dimension of our lives. So this ceremony really says, okay, we've got this wild part of ourselves. We've had these forces. We have these hungry, greedy things that are not in the least bit interested in whole foods, not in the least bit interested in health foods. Part of ourselves that would be happy to live on salt, sugar, and fat, probably, or alcohol, or whatever our particular thing is. So during this season, we say, yeah, that is true. That is true. It is there. It's true. It's true. It's true. I mean, we all know it's true. Despite all of our best efforts to be reasonable and get everything under control, the world is not under control. So during this season, we call forth these energies, we acknowledge these energies, and then we have this ceremony today that says, thank you very much. Glad to know you. Go back home. Go back to your appropriate place. One of the parts of the ceremony is we have all the Buddha figures covered. Because when we're really dealing with, if you've ever dealt with people who are really, really suffering, people who are in prison, people who are just flat out, really, really depressed, who've been tortured, you can't be too nice and too good and too pure. If you're too nice and too good and too pure, you have that holy radiance. They do not want to be around you. I don't know if you've had this experience, but people who are really, really, really in a dark place, they want somebody who understands that dark place. They don't want somebody coming in and saying, oh, life is so fun, let's be mindful and look at the lovely sun outside. They want somebody who knows and the darkness, who knows what suffering is like, who knows what it's like to really feel these dark things. So in honor of that, we cover up all the Buddhas. We cover up all the images that we have of brightness. We cover up all so that we can invite these forces forward. We also, as are not interested in health food. So we have on the altar all sorts of candy and junk food. Because that's what that part is attracted to. Not particularly good for it, but it's attracted to it. So as a way of attracting and acknowledging these forces in ourselves and the universe, we cover the Buddhas, we have offerings of junk food, and we say, okay, we acknowledge this is part of the world, this is part of ourselves, all right? I have to deal with this. I want to know this. Because if we don't know ourselves, if we don't know the parts of ourselves, if we don't know the deep, cavernous, dark parts of ourselves, and we have some fantasy that, oh yes, I am all pure, which I don't think any of us have, then boy, it really gets us. There is nothing like trying to be too pure and too good to have the inner critic come in and just castigate you and find out, oh yeah, it really is not the case. The higher the purity standard are, the more you can see the discrepancy between that and the nature of our life. So to really know oneself, to be able to honor one's whole being, to be able to relate to one's whole being, to be able to be skillful, we have to acknowledge there are these dark parts. Could even be called demonic parts. Because anybody who has not touched the degree of anger and greed, has not touched the insatiable selfishness in themselves, doesn't really know themselves. So we have this little ceremony today saying, yep, that's who we are. Got all this junk in there. Because knowing ourselves, and not just knowing the good side, not just knowing the nice side, but knowing the whole thing, means that we can really react to it, we can respond to it, we can work with it. We can incorporate it. It also means that when we know the dark sides of ourselves, we can work with the dark sides of anybody else. If we're identified with brightness and light, and somebody comes in who had their heart ripped out, you can't really resonate with them. So by knowing one's own suffering, by knowing one's own wildness, gives us the ability to sit with and be with anybody without having the big judgmental mind come in. Not having the mind of I am superior or inferior. Because being able to just be with somebody, then we can actually be of help to them. There's a nice poem here by Naomi Shahib Nye, which I'm sure many of you have heard, which I think is very apropos here. It's entitled Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you countered and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you. How he too is someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must also know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out the day to mail letters and purchase bread. and only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is I you've been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Naomi Shahid Man. It is the truth of Dharma, life. The first noble observation of Buddhism is everybody has problems. Everybody suffers. Everybody has difficulty. Everybody has challenges. Everybody has obstacles. There is no way around it. There is no escape from it. There is no place where that does not exist. It's just the truth. That's just an observation any of us can make. And to acknowledge that that is the case, to make that observation about ourselves, no matter what we do, there are challenges. No matter what we do, no matter how well we got it together, no matter how rational our world is, there's still the dark restlessness of the heart that has to be also dealt with. And so this ceremony today is about acknowledging those truths. We start off with clamor and cacophony and chaos, with making noise. And it is chaos that attracts certain kinds of energies. You know, you see, you watch political rallies, and some people just love chaos. They love arguments and fights, and they love, getting really excited. So we start this ceremony off with excitement. That's why you all have bells and whistles and voices, so we can make it really, really loud and noisy. And then we come in with the ceremony, and we offer this part of ourselves, this force in the universe, nourishment. We give people what they want, so they'll want what we have to give. We give this part of ourselves what it wants, so that it will want what our real true offering is. Our true offering of a big mind, our true offering of a bright mind, our true offering of an equanimous heart, our true offering of being able to really look realistically and see the nature of the world and not add to the suffering of the world. Be able to know the world, and then out of that knowing comes forth kindness, comes forth our compassion. Here's a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins. And really it is talking about this deep place of suffering. And it has no title. It's part of a series called Carrying Comfort. No worse there is none. Pitched vast pitch of grief, more pangs will, schooled at four pangs, wilder ring. Comforter, where is your comforting? Mary, mother of us, where is your relief? My cries heave, herds long, hurtle in a main, a chief woe, world sorrow on an age-old anvil, wince and sing, then lull, then leave off. Fury had shrieked, no lingering, let me be fell. Force I must be brief. Oh, the mind has such mountains, cliffs of fell, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed. Holden cheap, may who ne'er hung there. Nor does all our long durance deal with that steep or deep. Here, creep wretch, under a comfort serves in a whirlwind, all life, death does end, and each day dies with sleep. Lastly, the number one observation of Buddhism, the number one observation of humanity, the number one observation of all of us is everything changes. Everything constantly changes, constantly. No matter how well we get it all together, it changes. No matter how bad it is, it changes. It just changes. It's the number one observation. Everybody can see that. No matter how miserable and horrible you may feel, it changes. So acknowledging that we call up these dark parts, we face these dark parts, and then they change. We know the dark regions of our life, and they change. And in that constant change, in that constant evolution, in that constant enlarging of our perspective, in that constant making the heart bigger and bigger so that it can hold dark and light and easy and hard, and watch it all change is part of practice, part of Dharma.